Hello and welcome back to the Corruptive Chaos channel. I'm your host Corbin, and today we'll be reviewing Beast, which was directed by Balthazar Kormaku and stars Idris Elba.
I've never seen anything like this.
So I came into Beast being quite a bit of a fan of old school nature run amok or animal attacks type of films, which really were spurred on after the success of the very first blockbuster, Jaws.
Slow ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chum some of this shit.
And later came a plethora of animals versus people films, many of which just changed the animal and setting and basically used the very same structure that Jaws had already laid out back in 1975. So I was hoping it would be reminiscent of those maybe 70s flicks like Grizzly or Day of the Animals. Also like Jaws, you know, it kind of spurred on its own subgenre of just shark movies, killer shark movies in the 70s and 80s.
Anyone is fair game, because this grizzly preys on the easiest food of all, man.
So, in a way, I do think that Beast did sort of make me call back to those films, while also being a very new, modern type summer film that was just released recently. It didn't feel stuck in a different era. I just thought, as someone who enjoys those older type of movies, it did remind me of them. Additionally, I think it did deliver on building suspenseful set pieces while being on its shot on location landscape of South Africa. And that's really what you're looking for in these type of films. You want a lot of suspense. You want a well executed creature or animal that is lurking about in your known setting, along with characters that are at least fun to watch, maybe entertaining. Usually they're two-dimensional because you don't have a lot of time in that first act to set them up and really delve into who they are and flesh them out. You really use the first act to set them up in a two-dimensional kind of way, and then after that, their personality doesn't really change. They are kind of concrete in who they are, maybe up until the very last minutes of the resolution after the climax of the film. But anyways, so I do think it did relate, like I said, to those other films, but that doesn't mean it stood out in that kind of crowd of nature run amok animal attack films. It was quite generic. It is about a family led by Nate Samuels, who is a doctor that plays into the plot, played by Idris Elba, like I mentioned, and it has his two daughters along with him, Nora and Meredith. They are accompanied and really guided by Nate's friend, Martin, who is played by Charlton Copley, who is actually a native South African actor. He's in a bit of other films I recognize or projects I know of, but here, those four characters really take up the overwhelming majority of the screen time. We see other characters dispersed throughout the runtime, but really it is just those four who anchor the film and the plot. They eventually are stuck in a location in this African landscape, wildlife area with many other animals about. Our main titular beast is a lion, but we do see other animals throughout, like I said, and without the certainty of them being saved by some passerby or whomever, they do try and escape, while the fear of the lion lurking about is always present, and that makes for any sort of escape plan that they come up with tense. But also, I think that brings about maybe the biggest faults of the film, which is that our characters sometimes make very questionable decisions. I think those were the main parts where I was kind of taken aback or taken out of the film, where I'm like, okay, we're trying to make our characters do these specific things so that we can get to a big action moment, or they're intentionally acting stupider than they actually would have been to try and spur on some other event to get the lion to show up and get it more screen time. I would say especially the ending, our characters or a specific character makes a very questionable decision. I think Beast, while I am overall slightly positive on it, I think the ending could have almost ruined the experience and maybe made me give a negative review against it. But in the end, I will get to my rating later on. Some of those questionable decisions really pushed the boundaries of, how would a human being actually act in this situation. You always try to place maybe yourself in there. How do you act and react to the other characters and the animals around? And I think after the first act, where we are traveling and moving around a lot, it can be seen as abrupt when our characters are stuck in this one location for so long. But luckily, I think the biggest asset of the film is shown off when we're stuck in this one area, which would be how the film is shot. Beast has two cinematographers, actually, Felipe Rousselot and Balthazar Brecky Samper, who must have worked well together to really show off the visuals that they could come up with. I was really impressed at times with the amount of long takes that they utilized. I think I've talked about before how the average shot length in modern blockbusters is very short. It's 4, 5, 6 seconds, something around there. But here there were many shots that were minutes long that I really liked. Even shots that were just 20 to 30 seconds were really done well. And of course that means our characters have to choreograph everything and how they move about the space, because in those long takes the camera usually isn't locked down. Actually, the camera operator or whomever behind the camera is moving about very frequently in those long takes, which I really liked. So while I think the story and characters involved are quite generic, I think the visual style and what is displayed on screen and how the plot unfolds and our characters act within the scene was not generic.
We're in his territory now. It's the law of the jungle.
Now, I assume this film was a pretty mid-budgeted film for its production, so I was kind of impressed by the digitally rendered animals on screen, especially the titular beast, the lion, that is on screen. That creature, when rendered in front of our human characters in our physical on-location environment, looked quite well, actually. A lot of times, as I've certainly said before, bad visual effects or bad CGI can really take me out of a film, and it not only renders that one thing, whatever it may be, unbelievable, but it pulls me out of possibly the whole film, certainly the scene and whatever that bad effect is on. A lot of times, as I've certainly said before, bad CGI, bad visual effects can really take me out of a film, breaking that suspension of disbelief when you're watching a fictional film unfold before you. A lot of modern blockbusters really skimp on the visual effects, even though they have these huge bloated budgets. So seeing a film with probably not a huge production budget pull this off was pretty impressive to me. Along with that, I think our four human characters really were able to act well and scared, as they mostly were, in front of this fictional beast before them. As I said, it was obviously a CGI creature effect, but our characters were able to act well in front of it when it wasn't actually there. It was done in post-production, and I think the camera work also really sold it when you're in these kind of claustrophobic sequences where the lion and whoever our human character is get very close together, really building up the suspense in the scene. Well, Beast was a fine watch with a pretty generic story, kind of two-dimensional characters, and some emotional padding in the first act to make you care about them before they're placed in the danger. But against that, it was filmed quite well. I really like long takes. Even if they're done poorly, I still like long takes instead of just editing back and forth. Of course, the most famous and well-used shots in cinema are just the two characters talking and interacting over the shoulder shots. And whenever you can change that up and even just tell simple dialogue in a more creative way visually, I'm all for that. Plus, the filming of the natural scenery and the actual creatures, which I think were on location occasionally, looked quite well. So while the scares were predictable, I think if you like these kind of nature run amok, animal creature feature movies like I do, you should probably enjoy this. It was fine. It didn't offend me in any way. I'm just happy that a original script was made into a film. That doesn't happen seemingly very often anymore in the summer movie season, blockbuster season especially. So with that said, I'm going to give Beast 3 out of 5 stars. It was alright. It was good. You know, if you have Peacock, it'll probably be on there eventually. Go check it out there if you don't want to see it in theaters. So, thanks for watching, everyone. Be sure to give the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And stay tuned for more reviews.
I've got to get my girls out of here.
I need you to trust me right now.
I'm coming back.